Okay, I am fully aware it's been a long time since I've made a video. We as a family have just had such a crazy year. There has been so much going on. We've been so busy. We've had to make really tough decisions that affected what I could do and not do. And it's just been a year. We've had to just focus our priorities, and unfortunately, home projects were pretty low on my list through all of that. But it's the fall, and I have a delicious piece of pumpkin pie sitting here, and I finally feel the motivation, and we have the capacity to do a home project. And I am so excited to finally take on this tiny powder room on our main floor. This room is the only room in our house I have literally not touched one bit. It's actually a pretty important room. Any guest that comes to our house uses this bathroom. We actually use it the most out of all of our bathrooms because it's right off of our main living space, and it is exactly how the previous owners left it. There's still a glass shelf left up that they left. There is a towel holder that they left. Even the hooks on the walls that were holding artwork, I just hung random pieces of artwork in their place, and the color is blue. And if you've been around for a while, you know I'm not the biggest fan of the color blue. So it is finally time to tackle it, and I'm gonna do it. The only catch with this project is that I have a very small budget of 400 Canadian dollars, which I'm grateful for it, but if you are a home project person, you know that does not go that far. So I'm gonna have to be really creative here with reusing some things or seeing what I can keep and what I change out, how I spend that. And so it will be a fun project, and I hope that you'll enjoy coming along. I'm gonna show you what I do some DIYs, do a little bit of shopping, and we'll see where we can get this space on $400 and a short amount of time. But for now, I'm gonna just sit here and eat my pumpkin pie. Let's talk about my plan. Our powder room is in the middle of our house and doesn't have any windows, so I'd like to lean into a moody, dramatic look. I plan to bring some drama by making a statement on the walls, either through a texture or lime wash, but I'll need to explore what can realistically fit within my small budget. The main elements like the floor and vanity will be staying put, so I'd like to explore a DIY solution for the outdated wooden vanity and put my budget primarily into a few fixture upgrades like a new mirror and light fixture. Finally, I think that updating the accessories by bringing in some cozy textures will go a long way. And as one final DIY, I'd like to create a big gallery wall featuring old family photos that will give our guests something interesting to look at while they're using this tiny space. But as with any project, the first step is to prep. So I cleared out the few items that were in the powder room and went to town cleaning everything, including the baseboards and the floors. I also removed anything anchored into the wall and filled all of the holes, and I wanted to paint the trim and baseboards too. So once everything was clean, I spent some time taping along the floors, around the toilet and the vanity, and I'm going to do a tone-on-tone look, so I didn't bother taping around the door frames or along the walls. I'll just paint up those. Let's just talk about paint for a minute. After some research and budgeting, I realized that a wall treatment or lime wash did not fit within my budget, so I decided to attempt a faux lime wash technique using regular paint instead. I settled on a deep muddy green tone called Porpoise by Sherwin-Williams, and then also selected one tone down on the same palette card as a complement. I'll get into that more in a moment, but for now I used my main color Porpoise to paint all the trim, the door frame, and even the inside of the door. And I also used it to cut in at the ceiling, and I feathered it onto the walls too, which is important to note because it'll help when it comes to painting the walls in the next step. To create the DIY lime wash paint look, I used my two paint colors in a regular wall paint with a matte finish. I also used a small paint tray, a 5-inch wide paint brush, and a couple of extra smaller brushes just in case. To get the paint ready, I slightly propped up the one side of the paint tray and poured my main color on the one side of the tray. Then I leveled out the tray and immediately poured the second color on the other side. And the combination of these colors will give me the subtle tonal and textured look that traditional lime wash gives, so long as it's applied in a similar manner. To apply it, I dipped my brush into the paint, being careful not to saturate the brush too much. Like regular lime wash, I wanted to go really light with the paint and instead build it up with various coats rather than slathering it on.
The success of this technique comes from blending and feathering in an imperfect way. Too much paint applied at once will just give you a streaky look. So I applied it on the wall by starting in the middle and building out a cloud using random stroke motions. I didn't want anything to look perfect. It was all about building. I worked my way around the entire powder room, and it took some time, but it was very relaxing. And just as one final note, I didn't prime my walls because I was using a darker tone anyways, so if you do something similar with a lighter lime wash, you might want to prime your walls first. With the walls painted, my next DIY project was updating our existing vanity. Our oak vanity was in great condition, but it felt a little outdated with the classic 90s orange tone finish on it. And I love the warmth that a good wood tone can bring to a space, so I didn't want to just default to painting the vanity. So instead I decided to attempt a DIY update to the stain finish using gel stain. I removed the doors and hardware and then wiped everything down really well with vinegar and water. After cleaning and drying, I used a 220 grit sandpaper to lightly scuff up the surface on the doors and the main vanity. The beauty of this technique is that the gel stain can be applied on top of an existing finish because it doesn't absorb into the wood but rather sits on the surface. However, you do need to add a little bit of texture for the gel stain to grab onto. I used a really dark, nearly black gel stain color called Kona, and it seems really dark, but in considering how it would interact with the existing orange finish, my goal was simply to create a darker brown tone. Gel stain's pretty thick, so I applied it using a chip brush and allowed it to sit on the surface of my doors and vanity for 15 minutes before going in with a clean rag and wiping it all off. Once it all completely dried for a couple of days, I also attached some simple new hardware handles, and I'm going for a mixed metal look in the powder room, so I picked these handles to coordinate with the mirror finish. I am so impressed with how this simple DIY updated our existing vanity, and I'll link the specific tutorial I followed in the description below. Off camera, I tackled a few easy tasks like hanging a new mirror, and I had my husband help me replace the light fixture. Both of these choices immediately brought a freshness to the space, and I just love the mixed metal look that it created. In terms of decor, I picked up this little peg rail from H&M Home, but I wanted to add a shelf to it where I could set some small items. I simply cut down a scrap piece of 1x4 to the length of the peg rail and glued and brad nailed it into place. I filled in all the nail holes and gave the entire thing a good sanding with an orbital sander. Next, I painted the entire shelf with 2 coats of Fusion Minerals paint in the color Coal Black, so it would be a consistent black tone. I opted to hang it on the big blank wall beside the toilet, high enough that it wouldn't be bumped and so that I could hang a hand towel for guests on one of the pegs. I felt like there still needed to be some height on this shelf, so I found this simple square frame at the thrift store and decided I'd update the photograph. I want to feature old family photographs in this powder room, so I printed off a copy of an old photo of my dad with his 1970s Camaro in black and white, and I placed it in this frame. And I think this is such a cool picture and exactly what the space needed without being too flashy. I also had a handful of thrifted gold frames in my frame collection, so I pulled them all out and decided to fill them with other old family photos to create an interesting gallery wall. I still need to gather more photos from my husband's side of the family, so I left a few of them blank for now, but I at least went ahead and created an arrangement of the frames on the wall so they're in place and ready to go. I used command strips to hold the frames so I wouldn't be left with a bunch of small holes in the wall, but even a small nail would be enough to hold these light frames, and I love that I can always add to it or adjust them over time. With a few additional accessories, this space finally came together and I'm excited to show you the final result. But first, let's recall what it looked like before I started this makeover. And here it is now. I can hardly believe the impact that a small budget and just a little bit of elbow grease could make in such a small little room.
I really enjoyed working on this project. It was such a joy giver for me in a really tough season. I know it's been a long time coming, but I appreciate you watching this video. If you liked what you saw, make sure that you like the video, comment down below, or subscribe to our channel. We would love to have you join us. We try to post new videos whenever we take on a new project. And you can also find us on our blog, which is littleresorhouse.com. Remember that the best things in life are often the little things, like challenging yourself to take on a budget project to make your home feel a little bit more like your own. Bye, friends.